Here we go. It is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It is the 25th of November, 2023. I am setting up my listening table in Santa Monica on a Saturday with a college student from my alma mater. And the thought is, maybe she'll take it back to my alma mater, Syracuse University, where it snows all throughout the year, except in non-snowy times, and it's freezing cold outside, but could be a great place for listening tables because it's the world, and the world is a great place for better listeners. Naturally, I'm late. I'm doing a sponsored 3 months with Grok. Bang! Grok your world. I had used it to have some really interesting conversations with my significant other in the last week, and I was like, wow, it's so impressive that this little card game can have the most beautiful kind of results like that. Thanksgiving. What a recap. For Thanksgiving, I got to enjoy friendship and family time. My family itself doesn't have any members of its immediate family in the same city I live in. Nobody is within 5 hours, whether it's a car or a plane. So I have been fortunate enough to grow up where my parents have these terrific friends, and I get to go to spend Thanksgiving with them every year. About 4 or 5 years ago, we switched from going to one group of people to another group of people. Probably not too controversial, but it always feels like two eras. And this Thanksgiving, I stopped by both houses, which was amazing because I love pecan pie. And since this is a vlog about my experience in my life, pecan pie, it just wouldn't be my life without pecan pie. Pecan pie. I don't know how to say it. And by saying I don't know how to say it, I really just say it the way that it sounds like to me at the time. And everyone understands what it is either way, which is what communication is all about. So yeah, you give me a pecan pie at any time of the year, I'll eat it. It is my heart and joy of food. In other news, I like Thanksgiving because it is the best day for you to write to anybody to tell them how you're feeling about missing them in your life and being grateful for their presence. So I use that day. I think I sent out 40-something text messages on Thursday. I'll probably send out a bunch over the weekend because you have until maybe Sunday, maybe Monday. There really is no timeline, but you got probably that weekend. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. I was sitting here thinking about gratitude for you. And even though I haven't texted you in 3 to 7 years, I hope you're well. Great time to do that. Sometimes you don't get a response, sometimes you do, sometimes you get a response, you don't reply to it in reasonable time. It's fine. It's a great day for this. And if you missed it, if you're watching this video later, not near Thanksgiving, New Year's, great time, Christmas, Hanukkah, a great time. I say Hanukkah because I celebrate Hanukkah. I don't celebrate Christmas, but still, people do. So that kind of rocks. And then any time of the year is a good time to reach out to somebody, but these are extra easy times because you can just say, oh, hey, happy holidays. It'll probably be listening to Mariah Carey season soon, which is always fun for me. Just cause. I've been setting up at this spot in Santa Monica a bunch lately, and I've come to really enjoy it. It's close. It's easy. It's Saturday, and I can't remember how many Saturdays I've done at this location, but this should be a pretty poppin' spot right now. It's somehow still hot as heck in the end of November, and I'm stoked. Let's see. In my latest video uploads since the recent times, I posted a video that got a lot of views about a polyamorous couple going through some kind of relationship discussion, and I was able to listen to them talking about their situation and give some perspective on what I was hearing. I say it because one of them was talking about the different rules of the relationship and how they weren't kind of on equal understandings of things. And I made this video, and I would have loved to have been able to make a much longer video. I even recorded the conversation with their permission. And I don't know if I'm ever going to post it because there was so much vitriol and such an outpouring of judgment about these people. And I just wonder about, it was fascinating to see the people who didn't follow the page were usually the people saying all the things about how you couldn't listen to them. And I get that it is not something that people think about, accepting things that are outside of what they believe to accept. And I think about this because I'm personally, their relationship is none of my business. I was privy to the conversation, but there does come a time where you do make, like, there has to be a line with what you're willing to sit down and listen to without getting mad about it. Somebody wrote to me saying that me listening to someone talk about this bald headed, fighting, misogynistic character, even though I listened to a woman's perspective on him that wasn't my own, that should I like make it my business to tell her how to feel? Maybe, but maybe not always. I don't know. Food for thought. Is there a place where I draw the line? Absolutely. Do I need to know where that place is? I think that probably not. How are you supposed to know? You know, I can do a lot of thinking about it, but I've definitely given people resources for mental health support at different points in time. And there was the kid who was talking about his parents getting divorced and trying to stop it, or trying to like moderate it, that I felt like, hey, 10-year-old kid, I feel like I should tell you something about your not responsible for that. There are times where I am feeling more inclined to weigh in. Oh, the musicians are here. But is there a line where I say, this I'm not willing to listen to someone talk about? I don't know. Anyways, I'm here, so let's find out. We're bouncing now. Some people are coming to the beach to watch the sunset, and I have been at the beach long enough, so I will watch none of it. I'm driving home. The sun is beautiful in the sky right now. It is setting, it is sinking, it is careening into the sea, and people are gathering from all around to watch that thing go down, and I am stoked to bounce and also appreciate the light in the sky while I still have it, because you can see me on the camera and it's not dark out. That's called ambient light. So what happened today at the listening table? A recap, long form edition, which we love. This practice of longer recaps is making me so happy. I will continue to do it. Even if only one person comments, thank you to you. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel heard, and I understand it's a game of getting people to watch it. If I have 24 views and only one person comments on it, great. You're probably the only person that actually watched it. Maybe there's two people. So thank you to you two people. I really appreciate it. Now, let's do the recap as this beautiful white bus drives past. Wow. So what happened today? There were 4 or 5 conversations. The first person to stop by was the Running Man, and he let me take a video of him. He said that he had become separated from his fiance and decided to take up running. They were together for 10 years, and it just didn't end up working out. So he, after playing a bunch of video games and maybe smoking a bunch of weed, he decided to take up running. And now he is committed to running 2 marathons a year and running a marathon in every continent. He asked me to follow him on Instagram, and he is going to do this journey. One of the things that he shared was that he is spending money that he has saved to ultimately run marathons and travel to places where you run marathons. And he says, well, what's the point of living if you're not living? So he'll do the first 6 continents. That sounds pretty reasonable. And then the 7th continent, Antarctica. There's 1 or 2 marathons a year in Antarctica, and it costs like $10,000 to make happen. But you can do it one of 2 ways. There's the science bases. There's 2 science bases, and I guess it's some amount of fraction of a mile between the 2 of them. So you just run back and forth 30 times, and that ends up being 26 miles. And there's also the dangerous version, which is where you put snowshoes on and you run in Antarctica. He says that's the more dangerous version. He's only run 4 marathons so far, and I say only like that's a small amount of marathons. Anyways, that was a beautiful story, and I'm grateful they let me record it, because maybe I'll make a video about it. He also dropped some high chew on the floor, when he was running away, and I ate that after waiting for him for about 20 minutes to see if he'd come back and get it. On the topic of fiancés, the second person who sat down was incredibly chipper and super sad. And he's got a friend wearing a shirt with a famous adult video website logo on it. And he talks about how, first of all, he's like, I don't know what you guys are doing. And he sits down and says he's not exactly comfortable sitting and talking. And he talks about how he has lost a lot recently. He lost his father, he lost his dog, he lost his girlfriend or fiance, and he feels really sad. At the same time, he is going out, and the way he said it was he's sleeping with, no, the way he said it was a little more the way he said it was a bit more lewd, but I'll just say he's being really social in a very physical way with many people, and he's not very happy about it. He says he should be, but he's not, and he's scared to hurt somebody by letting them close to him, and at the same time he says he's doing it anyways. I tried to reflect back to him what I was hearing by using the vocabulary I had learned to say, like, I hear what you're saying, and putting emotions on things, and he said, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. But he also had said at the end that he doesn't really feel like this is listening because we're having a conversation. And he said Jonna, who is my silent observer of the day, who's super cool, that she felt like a much better listener than me because she just sat there and actually listened. So that was really fascinating. This was the first time someone has sat down and said that I wasn't, they didn't say I was a bad listener, but they said she was listening much better than I was. So it was beautiful, and I'm really grateful for that, because what I was trying to do in the act of listening, speaking, hearing, reflecting, just wasn't what this guy wanted. And it seems like he just wanted to talk and be listened to silently. Or maybe I used the wrong words. Either way, great. One of the things that came up for me was he had this friend who was standing there the whole time listening, and I wanted to ask if he was able to talk to one of his friends about this. And I didn't ask that question because it was something I wanted to know, but didn't, like, that was trying to fix things. Oh, he said it sounds like I'm trying to fix things, which I wasn't doing, but I could see how me putting words on his thing feels like we're trying to get somewhere, and it's all about the perception. So I didn't ask this question, but I found out when they stood up, his friend said, now I have all these things I can hold against you, or some kind of joking way of saying I've learned a lot about you from this, which that gives me hope that maybe they have a deeper connection. The third conversation was with Coach Pete, a former marketing career sales guy who came up and said, what's this all about? And I told him, and he said a couple questions, asked about coaching, said he had this idea to set up a table, or his son had this idea, or he should set up a table and do coaching for $5, 10-minute coaching for $5. And he asked why I had the idea to do it. He asked me about if I've heard of active listening, which I obviously have. And he told me something he learned at some listening communication skills thing called listening from zero, which basically means you start listening, holding on to none of your preconceived notions. Whatever they're saying, you're taking it at face value, and you are not getting clouded with whatever you think about the situation beforehand. I know it doesn't really exist, that situation, but being able to have a perspective on somebody talking and not trying to throw doubt on them can be really interesting in learning about their situation without, look, I know certain things are disagreeable to me, and when people talk about them, I have all kinds of hesitations of believing in them. Oh, you believe that? Well, this is pointless for me, or I think this is funny, or blah, blah, blah. Fascinating concept, listening from zero. He would later come back and ask me about, like, a permit, and I said, you don't need a permit if you just don't sell anything. So, way to go, me. Spreading the law. You should know the law if you're going to set up in public and do something wild. The third person to sit down was named Sam. That wasn't his full name, but that's enough of a name. And he talked about how he had been homeless for 18 years and had just gotten into a living situation about a year and a half ago, which was beautiful. And he asked what we wanted to hear about. He's like, I'll sit here and talk about whatever you want. And I said, I'll listen to you talk about whatever you want. And he tells the story of how he was in a really bad place, and eventually, through staying in mental asylums and prisons and being on the street, he figured out that the cost of doing business was not worth it. What I mean is, I asked him what made this shift in his life, and he said he was really forthcoming with information. He kept making funny jokes, which I enjoyed, that were totally friendly and harmless. And because of how forthcoming he was about whatever we wanted to talk about, I asked him what made him change from living on the street and being in prison to getting a home that he lived in. And he said that he had just realized that it wasn't worth it, the risks and the lifestyle that you have to live if he just didn't want to be in prison anymore. And so he stopped whatever he was doing. He just stopped it. It sounded like a gradual thing. So that was really fascinating to me. It wasn't a snap thing, which I didn't expect it to be, but I was just curious, how you come from 18 years of incarceration and homelessness and drug abuse and all this stuff. And he seems like he's doing really well. I asked about connections he has in his life, and he says that he's really connected with nature, and he has come to a place where he doesn't, if someone isn't supportive or giving him good energy, he doesn't need them, which is boundaries. I didn't ask about how many people he has in his life. He says he still associates with a bunch of people on the street. I think that maybe there's some comfort there. But he also says that he won't tolerate that kind of negative energy anymore. It was great. I was a big fan. And he seemed like he was really willing to talk about anything. And so I just thanked him eventually for sharing and told him I hope I see him again. And Jonna asked my thoughts on the last conversation, and I said, this guy seems like he could have hung out for a long time, and I would have been interested in giving the space for somebody to talk who really needed the space instead of me asking questions. And I said it like, I don't want to be entertained by somebody. I'd rather be there for somebody that wants to talk and share. There was one more deep conversation, which I'll talk about right now, I guess. This is the man who said he was going through a lot over his last several years. Another case of having a fiance that turned into an ex-fiance. This was a man who says he came from the projects and had nothing, and he became a chemist, and he started a multi-million-dollar company. That was one of the first things he said, was he had a $5 million company, and his co-worker, his co-founder or partner, stole the money from him, and they had to go to court, and it was horrible. And in the court debacle, he said he never asked his wife, fiance, if she was happy. And he realized he was so caught up in the legal proceedings that he abandoned the relationship he was in, and eventually she left him, and he feels really sad about that. He didn't pay attention to his loved one because he was busy doing all this stuff, and he had his car stolen and his whole company, and eventually he won the litigation, and he had this big payout, and he said he didn't want the money. Well, I'll take it, is what I wanted to say. Obviously I didn't, but he said he really values being there for people, helping people, and he has a new career now, and he says he has about 2 friends. He says he was betrayed by so many people in this process. His fiance left him. Not a betrayal. That was something he feels like he understands the reasoning behind that. His partner betrayed him. He lost a bunch of friends. Some science thing happened with the legal proceeding. And so he really doesn't trust. His trust has been hurt, and he is incredibly sad. And I feel really... So the GoPro died. I don't know where I was. But he was talking about, in this conversation, neither me nor my silent observer said anything at all. Maybe a little bit of a reference to the previous conversation where me asking questions about understanding didn't connect with his desire to be heard in the same way. Either way, asking these questions, I didn't say anything this time. And after he spoke, he just said so much words of thanks and feeling heard. And it just felt really right. So that just goes to show that sometimes not saying anything is a great way to listen. I think that's kind of a normal expectation of what people expect when they're listening, but just playing in different ways is something that's interesting to me. After that, a bunch of people came. We had a whole crowd around us at one point. Someone asked me why I was doing the table. I got to tell it to one person, and they left in the crowd, and I told the story a handful of times, and that was really cool. Nothing draws a crowd like a crowd, and it helps people be interested, so I'm really glad that that existed for me to be able to talk to some people. And then as we were packing up, some woman walked up and said she wanted to talk, but we were already packed up. She said, I'll come by next time. I said, great. Jonna also started her own listening project when she was in the Netherlands, and she's going to be bringing a listening table to Syracuse University, which is awesome. And if you want to bring a listening table to your campus, let me know. Or your world, please reach out. I'd be happy to help you get there. And if I haven't mentioned it yet, if you've watched this far in the video, go to the website for Grok. That'd be awesome. Also, hats for sale. Also, thank you for listening. Also, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Also, way to go, Orly, for editing this video. Also, I've got a phone call to make. Also, so thank you to everyone who's watched this far in the video. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to make these and feel like even one person is listening to them, and hopefully it adds some value to you. It certainly adds value to me because I can go back and watch and listen to these videos so I can remember where I was in my head during the listening tables themselves, and I can make these better recaps. Great. All right, I'm out. Thanks for listening. Have a great listening day.